Let's all take a deep breath in as we center ourselves in divine love and the peace that passes understanding. We know that peace shared between us and with others spreads throughout the world, one to another. So thoughtfully, let us say the St. Francis prayer together. God, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. O divine presence, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. God is our resting place. We relax into the divine and into the divinity that we are. We know that here, in the heart and the soul of us, that all is well and we can let go. In the silence, we experience spiritual wholeness, completeness, harmony, and deep, deep well-being. Here we discover ourselves as God made us, pure and wholly perfect, in its image and likeness. There we experience all the joy, peace, harmony, and well-being that God is. Our yoke becomes easy and our burden light. Let us rest in the arms of the divine together in peace for the next 2 minutes. come back into the room slowly, refreshed and renewed in spirit. As we go through our week, we're conscious that we coexist with God as a living witness to a loving, living God in all we think, all we say, and all we do.
There's a sweetness in surrender when you see beyond your scars. It's not the things in life that you've been through that make you who you are. There's a freedom in forgiveness when you learn to just let go. Holding on too tight won't change a thing, and change is how we grow. Learning to live and learning to trust yourself. Trusting yourself, you can learn to trust someone else. You'll find a way. Learning to live and learning to trust yourself. Trusting yourself, you can learn to trust someone else. You'll find a way. You'll find a way. You know the way.
What a beautiful lead-in. You know, I love that. Learn to trust so that you can forgive. And if you don't know the way, you'll find a way. Well, that's sort of true because I'm going to talk about the way today. If you didn't know the way, you will by the time I'm done. How about that? But there are so many ways. I mean, we hear so often how we must forgive. You know, it's in the greatest literature, you know, of the ages. There's a great deal of Bible verses which deal specifically with this idea of forgiveness. Easter itself has, and Lent has as one of its core principles, this idea of forgiveness. Not only that we be forgiven for what we may have done, but that we forgive others. Yeah, forgiveness is freedom. Forgiveness is life itself. And, everybody feels the need at some point in time for forgiveness, and most of us have fallen short around that ideal many times as well. Not that we always do. I mean, we've all been injured, and some of the injuries have been more difficult to get over than others. We've injured other people as well, and sometimes we've done it not maliciously, but we have done it just out of ignorance. So this whole thing around forgiveness is an amazing discussion and an incredible way of life. It really is a way of life. Forgiveness can be a way of life. And for it to become a way of life, we have to start sort of exercising our forgiveness muscle, if I could put it that way. There's a way to do this that I have found in my research and in my life to be somewhat more effective than others. So many times in my life I've heard people say, you have to forgive. You just have to forgive. I remember my mother saying, forgive your brother. And then your brother, to my brother, she'd say, and now you have to forgive Greg. And we just nod our heads like, yeah, sure, okay. How are you supposed to do that, right? A couple of things wrong with that. It was just sort of a truncated version of what it is you might need to do in order to clear the air. But neither of us meant it. We didn't mean it. But it's something we had to say, and she would go like this with her hands like, well, that. And we sort of bring that to the moment in our lives, whatever we run up against when it comes to injury, when it comes to anger, when it comes to resentment, when it comes to being the quote-unquote victim of something that somebody or some institution or something did to you, we run up against those difficulties. How do I deal with this? What can I do in order to release myself from these feelings? Well, first of all, you have to get to that place where you say, what can I do to release myself from these feelings? Because sometimes those feelings can be awfully interesting. In our mind, we are actually accomplishing some act of revenge, during the process of this grieving, this hurt, this injury, this suffering that we may be feeling. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Something has happened in your life and you savor it a little bit, You see them having bad things happen to them, or having bad luck, or whatever it is that runs through your mind once in a while. Gosh, wouldn't it be nice if? So we savor it rather than look at it as something that we must take care of. We must step into a process where we can actually forgive and be free, and where we can love and see each other again, where we can be connected. Forgiveness allows that to happen, because it can put up a roadblock in your life that you just can't get around. I know many people in my life, my mother included, who was completely unable to forgive this absolute horrific injury that she received as a child. She didn't ask for it. She didn't play a part in it. She could not forgive it. And it showed up in everything that she did. It was always there as an underpinning to everything that seemed to happen in her life. And she would refer to it often. If this hadn't happened, if this person hadn't done this to me, we wouldn't be in this space right now. We wouldn't be in this problem right now. She was completely unable to get around it. It kept her boxed in. It kept her in a jail of sorts. And the reason why you can listen to this story about my own mother is because you can relate to it too. The reason why it means something is because it's all of our stories to some degree. To some degree. Doesn't have to be. So this process of forgiveness, let's start first with the idea that we're in the Easter season, we're in the Lenten season, and let's start with the idea that we need forgiveness, that we must be forgiven for the things that we have done that did not hit the mark. So the word sin says essentially that we missed the mark. That's the way we look at it here in Unity, that we missed the mark. Now it's not something that is considered to be anything out of the ordinary, because we all miss the mark from time to time, and not something we should take so to heart that we can never forgive ourselves or expect ourselves to be forgiven by the divine. We all miss the mark. You know, I love the idea of shalom in the Jewish tradition, which is that space where everything is as it should be. And so, you know, when you miss the mark, you are creating a little bit of a disturbance in the shalom, you know? And everybody creates a little bit of disturbance in their own shalom once in a while. You know, starts to push around all the beautiful feelings that you would expect to always be there in life, and you create for yourself something just a little bit different. So I'm, quote a comedian, say, stop it. Stop it. Stop doing that. Don't you just love that? That's Bob Newhart, you know, when he plays the psychologist, and he takes $5 from his patients and says, I'm not going to spend more than 5 minutes with you. You will be healed. It's true. It's very funny. And what he says is, go ahead and tell me what's going on. And in the middle of them telling this tale of woe, he stops them and says, okay, stop it. Just stop it. And then he says, thank you very much for coming. And you know, it's so funny because it's true. The person needed to stop it. But we all know, too, that it's just so hard. You know, we get attached to our stuff. We get attached to the little things that happen in life to us. And it's hard to stop it. You know, we can tell a story again and again and again and again and again, especially if we have been harmed or wronged. You know, that story just pops up. Do you know what so-and-so did to me? Do you remember when? You know, I mean, I could tell a lot of those myself. You know, if I start to tell one, just turn around and walk away. Really, I mean, I need that kind of reinforcement, you know. You're not going to listen to it. I shouldn't listen to it. We shouldn't listen to that. We shouldn't have to. We have to have a way. We need to find a way where we can move through that and get out of that. And that way is forgiveness. That way is forgiveness. But you see, it doesn't work just to say you need to forgive somebody. We tried that when we were kids. We have to have a process. So I'm going to say that in all of my research and life's journey, I have come up with a way that I think works well. A combination of a lot of effort from other people, a lot of ideas from other people, a combination of, you know, the spiritual realm and the secular realm coming together to figure out what neuroscience says about religion and religion says about neuroscience and spirituality says about it all. Because there is a spiritual nature to forgiveness, isn't there? There really is a spiritual nature to forgiveness. There's also a neurological issue that is being studied by science, too. I mean, there is a scientific thing that goes on inside of you when you either forgive or refuse to forgive. There are chemicals that permeate your body when you rush around your life with resentment as your blood. And then releasing that, being able to release that in some way changes your chemical structure as well. How many times have you recognized that people who are in distress around things that happen to them that they can't let go suffer from certain physical distress? Certain physical illnesses, certain things happen in their system, from ulcers to high blood pressure to anxiety to stressful circumstances. It's a never-ending battle to keep the body in great shape when the mind forces it to do otherwise. It's wild. There is a mind-body connection. So forgiveness is healthy. So let's figure out how to do this. Okay, I say, I love this. I even have my own quote. I got my own quote in my notes here because I like to do that, you know. So when I was thinking about forgiveness when I wrote this, and I said, a door does not have to close for a new one to open, okay? So what I mean by that is that for a new door to open in your life, you don't have to have something else be taken from you or lose something so that this new door can open. You can have both doors open. You can have a bunch of doors open. There are endless doors for you, filled with endless stuff. Whatever you need, whatever you want, you can have. So, you know, you don't have to wait for that door to close before you get something new. You know? And so what we're looking for is something new in this process. We don't want forgiveness to limit our life. We don't want the lack of forgiveness to limit our life. We want forgiveness to open it up. So forgiveness is a conclusion. It is an end point. Forgiveness is something that has happened. The conclusion to this story, the conclusion to this process is forgiveness. So just to say it, which is a starting point, is not going to get us to the conclusion. How do we start this process of forgiveness? What do we do to start the process of forgiveness? Well, that's a good question. We really have to acknowledge that forgiveness is necessary because otherwise we run around in this, you know, internal bubble of, you know, wanting to dish out some sort of retribution. Oh, by the way, you know, if we don't deal with the things that created this need for forgiveness, we're going to be looking for that. We're going to be looking for that retribution. We're going to be looking for that revenge because what do you do with those emotions if you don't know how to deal with them? What do you do with them? You give them back to the person. You say, here, and double up, baby. That's what revenge is. Been waiting a long time to do this. No, that's because those haven't been dealt with. Those emotions haven't been dealt with. Those issues haven't been dealt with. So let's deal with them. Let's deal with them. So the first thing we have to do is we have to take a look at, let's say, a person who has hurt me. I have to take a look at the situation and I have to say, well, it is what it is. What that means is I cannot change that person. I have to accept or acknowledge that this is who this person is. And I don't have to wait for them to change because they're probably not going to do so. I do not have to wait for them to change to move into this process. I just have to look at them and say, this is who you are. This is who you are. I acknowledge that. I may not be able to spend time with you because this is who you are. I may not be able to be around you because this is who you are. But I need to acknowledge that this is who you are. This is a beginning process. I can accept that there are people in the world like you, and I love you, by the way. When I say you, I'm talking about that doggone guy. So I can accept that there are people in the world like that doggone guy. And I can acknowledge that he's not going to change just because I don't care for him. So there has to be some acceptance in the mix. You see, acceptance doesn't mean that I approve of whatever this person did to me or whatever the actions of this person were that created some sort of hurt. It might be monumental hurt. It might be awful hurt. It might be somebody else that was hurt. It might be a whole group of people that were hurt. Me not liking that person is not going to change their conduct. Can we accept that? Let's accept that. We got to accept that. So, I'm not hurting anybody by sitting here and drinking poison. Because that's what I'm doing when I hate or feel anger for others. I'm sitting here drinking that cocktail of poison. It's going to kill me, not them. They don't even know. They don't even know I'm thinking about them. So I got to accept that this is who he is. This is who he is. Or she, or whomever it might be. And that's a great starting point. You know, the starting point in the process of cleaning up a life that has been filled with difficulty and problematic behavior, and that's, by the way, the AA program that does this through the 12 steps. The starting point in cleaning some of that stuff up is to recognize and reframe this issue by accepting who they are, saying, you know, this is a sick person. In fact, this is the fourth step. And the part of the fourth step in the book of Alcoholics Anonymous is on page 67, and this is the prayer, if you want to call it a prayer. This is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? I'm acknowledging that this person is a sick man and I'm not going to be able to change him. How can I be helpful to them? Oh, you know, this is the superpower, right? I'm going to end up praying for somebody. I'm going to end up praying for somebody that I'm mad at, right? How can I be helpful to him? God, save me from being angry. Thy will be done. God, build a bridge from my anger to my healing. I cannot change the way another person acts, but I can see that he or she knows not what they do. That last part from the Bible, of course, forgive them for they know not what they do. Jesus on the cross. Okay, so the first thing I've done here is I have accepted who they are, and I see them perhaps as a sick person, somebody that needs to evolve, moving forward in their own way, however that has to happen. Now, I'm still suffering with injury, even though I have accepted or acknowledged that they are who they are. I'm still suffering from an injury that may have happened years and years ago. Can you imagine that? I guess I'm just human, right? I'm just human. But this happened years and years and years ago, and it still shows up in my life, and I still suffer from it. This is where Bob Newhart says, stop it. You know, and I'm an adult now, right? I'm an adult now. Stop it. That happened when I was a kid. Stop it, Greg. Stop thinking about that and suffering for something that happened a long, long, long time ago. You know, I may not have had a part in the injury that occurred to me. I mean, I may have been that innocent child or that innocent person that was somehow in the way of somebody else's conduct. I mean, horrible stuff can happen in that way. I may not have had any part in that at all, but I'll tell you what, that 30 years of suffering around it, I played a major role in that. You know, because I didn't know how to let it go. I didn't know how to work through it. And so we take personal responsibility. We have to take personal responsibility, which is the second step in this process of forgiveness. We have to take personal responsibility for what's showing up in our lives right now. We have to take personal responsibility for the part that we play today in the suffering that we are going through now as a result of all that stuff that happened back then. I know that I'm striking a chord. You know, I know that. I know that I'm looking at people who are going, I'm going to try this. I really am. I'm going to acknowledge that this is necessary for me to acknowledge that they are who they are and take responsibility for my own suffering right here and right now. And how can I do that? How can I do that? You know, one of the greatest ways to do that is to acknowledge that there's something in it for me. Have you ever heard a very spiritual person say, you know, I don't care what it is, there's something in this for me. Something for me to learn from this. Some benefit that I might be able to receive from this. There's something in it for me. Now, a lot of people also use that same ideology in this phrase. I believe everything happens for a reason. Have you ever heard that? Have you ever said it? Probably have. I believe everything happens for a reason. Well, do you know what? If you don't know what that reason is, then you haven't worked through this thing that happened to you. You haven't worked through this thing that has caused injury to you if you don't know what that thing or that reason is. You see, you should know, right? I mean, if you work through it, if you walk through it and you said, oh my goodness, as a result of having gone through this situation, I am now more courageous. I now know more about people. I know how to start relationships and maintain relationships in a better way. I know to set boundaries, to never do this again. I know that as a result of this, I have found a path that works rather than one that hurts. Are you with me on that? So, you know, if you don't know that, then you haven't worked through it. Do you see? To just look at something and say, gosh, I hurt. I know that everything happens for a reason. Hurt, hurt, hurt. You haven't worked through it. Now, I'm not pointing the finger at you because we're all there somewhere in this path. We've all, you know, I can pinpoint several incidences where I am still on that path. I am still working through this process right now. You know, and as I was going through this talk in my head, which I do all the time, there's something in here that won't leave me alone. It just says, spiritual principle, let's talk about it. Spiritual principle this, spiritual principle that, spiritual principle forgiveness, let's talk about this. And so I am looking for the gift in this. I'm looking for the gift in this situation. If everything happens for a reason, then where's my gift? Oh, if you don't know, like I said, what your gift is, then you haven't worked through it. Okay, so this is really interesting because this third step here of recognizing what the gifts are, recognizing what has been brought to you, and by the way, that list that I gave you, you know, courage, setting boundaries, you know, on a path I never would have found, you know, doing something that I never would have been able to do had I not done this, finding a different job after having gotten fired by that you-know-what, and this new job, woo, it's good. I mean, all of that stuff. Those are the things you can look for. Look for the blessings. Look for the seeds that were planted when you felt that you were at your lowest point, hopeless and helpless. Look at the seed that was planted. We're in Easter, right? We're coming up on Good Friday. Look at the seed that was planted with Jesus on the cross. Not just planted for Jesus in his life and for the lives of the disciples, but for everybody who followed. Everybody, including us. You see, there are all sorts of mythological stories that tell us this phoenix issue, you know, from the ashes comes something brand new. Well, it happens. It is true. Let's find it. Let's find the new. Are you a better person for this? Sure. Tell me how. What have you learned from this? What has popped up? What are you going to do differently? How is it that this has brought about a new sensibility for you, a new consciousness, a new understanding of how life unfolds? Write it down. Write it down. There are benefits. And if you believe that things happen for a reason, let's figure out what they are. Once you look at that list, do you know what? This is where I am with this. I can't help but well up with gratitude. I can't help but well up with gratitude and say, you know, life is such an interesting journey. I mean, look at these things that have happened. Look at these things that have unfolded. Look at where I am today. Look at where you guys are today. You're sitting in a magnificently beautiful sanctuary, listening to the wonderful music of two talented musicians, being cared for by a host of volunteers and loved ones. I mean, where else would you rather be? I mean it when I say I love Sundays. I mean that because I love you, and I know you love me. I mean, look at the twists and turns that brought me to this space. Talked about it. We've been in this thing for almost a year now, haven't we? Wow, time flies. Can you believe that? And next year we're going to need 2 services, by the way. Because once you leave today, you're going to talk about how good this was. And you're going to say, doggone it, you know, this process is going to work for me. I'm going to try it, and you should too. You see, because once you have hit this gratitude plateau, forgiveness is complete. Seriously. If you can see the benefits, outline the benefits, love the benefits, as a result of something that was horrific, something horrible, something that you struggled with, something that you worked through, then you have hit that forgiveness mark. That doesn't mean that you need to hang around with the people that hurt you ever, ever, ever again. You never need to do that. But forgiveness is a must. Not only spiritually, not only biblically, not only religious, from a religious perspective, but it's a must for your life and your health. So, yeah, I hope that you guys see the benefits of even investigating this forgiveness thing. Because I always say to people, the things that I have to say, I hope plant seeds in what it is that you want to determine your path to be. Meaning, get to it. Let's get to work. Let's figure out how you get to where you want to be. And I say that because I love you. I see the God in you, and you see the God in me. And the way we nail that down is we say, Namaste. Amen. Thank you. So we have a way of sharing, and we have a new usher. Can you see the usher? Ushing today is Steve. Steve with the socks and all. Now I have a pair of those socks. I recognize those socks. I didn't wear them today. Today I wore my Argyles. You know, it's all about how you feel, you know. So Steve, would you come forward, please? Now we have a way of bringing gifts to those things that bring gifts to us. This is called the law of circulation. And what we do is we support the things that are valuable to us. And a community like this has got to be valuable. Actually, it's number one on my list. It really is. But we support a community like this because we love the community. And it also creates a consciousness that moves out into the larger community. I mean, we are involved in what is known as a tipping point. As we bring a consciousness of love and caring and giving, so it becomes catchy. And this consciousness permeates the wider community. So let's be a part of that tipping point. And what we say together during our community giving is, God is the source of my overflowing supply, and I am grateful. Go, Steve, go.
This is call and response, so let me hear you. Oh, yeah. I am a light. I am a light in this world. In this world, I am a light. I am a light in this world. In this world, this is the place. This is the time. Let it shine. Let it shine.
Let it shine.
I see the joy. I see the joy. Yes, in this world. In this world, I see the joy. I see the joy. In this world. In this world. This is the place. This is the time. Let it shine. Let it shine. I'm living love every day. I'm living love every day. I'm living love every day. Feeling peace along the way. This is the time. This is the place. Living love every day. We see the light. We see the light in this world. In this world, we see the light. We see the light.
We see the light
in this world. In this world, this is the place. This is the time. Let it shine. Let it shine. This is the place. This is the time. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Woo!
Surprised you didn't just dance down the aisle, Steve. Come on down, man. Come on down. This time to come on down. Hey, got to stay in the spirit, right? Yes, indeed, indeed. Oh, so this is what we promise. We promise to be in integrity with these tithes and treasures, with the gifts, the bounty that you bring, so that Unity of Pasadena moves forward and thrives and brings a message of hope and goodness and compassion and love to the wider community. For we are the ones who have that responsibility today to bring that tipping point to fruition. And we do it with a grateful heart. Thank you. I release these words into the law of mind, knowing they're done. And so it is. Amen. Thank you, Steve. All right, so I think we need to do our silent unity prayer for protection. And we've been standing. Does that seem all right with you? You guys, let's stand on that? Okay, let's stand. Let's stand for this. Please join me. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever I am, God is. I am divine, and all is well, and so it is. So if you'd like to join us in the peace song, we're going to join. This is community. Oh, this is I Choose Love. Peace was the first word, though. I got that one right. It's a love song, too.
Peace in my life is growing because I choose love. Love's always present. It's what I'm made of. I choose love. We are a part of each other. We are one. One tie that binds us that can't be undone. I choose love. Peace for our planet is growing because I choose love. Let love be present. It's what we're made of. I choose love. We are all part of each other. We are one. One choice unites us. Let this be one. I choose love. I choose love. I choose love.
Oh, man. We have hospitality today, you guys. I'm gonna let it shine. How are you feeling?